Well, hello and welcome back. I am Kieran Siemens, and this is my inky world. What a beautiful world it is. Full of ink and drawing and messy stuff all over the place. Right, so today I have to do some book covers. I've been very busy these days doing all my kids' books. I love doing my kids' books. It's my that's my main source. I love doing kids' books. But today I'm going to do a book cover for one of the old Worilips ones. So, let's have a look, shall we? Well, hello and welcome back. Here we are. We are on a mission today to do a book cover. Now, the book cover is for Worilips. So I'm going to just put down a rough idea. Just a couple of lines because I've got borders there and stuff going on it. So I'm trying to just make sure that it all falls into shape the way that I kind of want it to be. I just put basically where I want the arm, I put a line. Where I want the curve of the body, I put a curve. Just so that I don't get too far out because this will have a border on it. So that's part of the fun of today. It's kind of like this character that I had before called Worilips, Norman Worilips. He was like, I thought it was one of my best books. I loved it, but I don't know, sales weren't too good. What happened? Nobody bought it. What's up? So go over and have a check out. It's about a guy's broken heart and all his thoughts and his daily thoughts. So I thought I'd kind of like redo the cover a little bit and see if I could kind of he had this wonderful face. I'm going to try and kind of get that feeling in his, and it's kind of like a crazy story. It's kind of a little bit kind of difficult to kind of give it all away in 30 seconds, but he kind of met this lady and she was living in his house, and she was a ghost. And the ghost kind of falls in love with him in a strange way. And the guy kind of he dies of a broken heart, and he goes to the hospital and has a terrible time. And Norman returns to his house and finds that there is this ghost, and the stories and the thoughts are about poor Norman in this house. And well, I loved it. I loved doing that book. I did three volumes of that book, and I absolutely loved it. I thought, you always have that point where you think, well, this is it. This is what's going to make me. This is going to make me rich. This is going to make me famous across the planet. And it's one of those type of times when you think everything's going great. And it didn't seem to happen. I'm not really quite sure what happened with that book. But I loved it. I loved it so much. I don't think people really kind of got it. Maybe I was trying to be too clever. I sometimes do that. I sometimes try to kind of be a bit too clever in my own crazy way, I kind of start thinking about something and I start thinking, oh my God, that's a great idea. I should do this. I should do that. And I guess we all do as artists. Today is Winsor & Newton ink. It's a little bit, I find it a little bit thicker, so I find that the nib dries up too quick. If you watch when I'm drawing, I kind of do a line, and then now it's run out. It's like, I feel it's like you don't give me time to play, you know. It's like, so it's one of those type of mornings where I'm trying to get the balance with this. And he had this lovely mouth. I loved Norman's mouth. His mouth kind of, sometimes it could kind of like fall off the paper. You know, it was kind of like a mouth that could kind of like curl up on around the top of his head and stuff like that, you know. And I loved that about him. I loved that as part of his character. It was just like, you know, the whole kind of excitement about this character was that he was happy in 1 minute and then sad the next minute, and I love to put that into some of the poses. And there he is. You can kind of see in this pose here, one side of his mouth is going up like smile, and then next part going down like unhappy. Let me just check my, yeah. And I loved that about it. I loved the fact that it kind of had this like very unsure type of feeling about him. It was like he was never really sure about anything in his life, poor Norman. And it was just such a beautiful character to play with. I've been getting into the point of writing a full kind of scripted book for this character and for these stories. And it's one of those type of times when you need your confidence at the best, because it's kind of like writing a full kind of novel is kind of like, it's very taxing on the brain, you know, and taxing on the confidence. And recently my YouTube's been very quiet these days. I don't know where all my people have gone. Where has everybody gone? You know, there's like 1,000 people following me one time, and then now the video numbers are smaller and smaller and smaller. It doesn't really bug me, but it does make me think curious. What's happening? Where is everybody? Where are you all hiding? Where have you all gone? There he is. Oh, poor Norman. And he had, I don't know, in my mind when I was kind of creating the character, I always kind of imagined him in an old kind of rugby shirt. And I used to have a rugby shirt many years ago. It like doesn't really fit in my wardrobe these type of days, you know. It's like, but I used to have this kind of this odd green and white, or green and grey, or something like that, striped rugby shirt. And I don't know, when I was drawing this character, all I could think about was he was wearing just like that kind of old rugby shirt that I used to wear, you know. And again, it's like sometimes these characters kind of talk to you, you know. It's like when you're drawing them, they're kind of saying, I wear this, I do this, I'm like this, I want. And no one was kind of like that. It was kind of like this very old kind of rugby shirt. And I loved, it just seemed to fit him so beautifully, you know. As I drew the character, and as he kind of developed, there was more and more that kind of grew out of his character. And I just loved the fact that he was such a shy, lovable character, you know. In the stories, he's just adorable, you know. And well, in the in the book and in the stories, he kind of ends up you're not really quite sure if it's like his imagination or it really is that. But then it ends up that the house kind of becomes a little bit kind of full of ghosts. Nice, friendly ghosts, almost like he's sharing his house with lots of people. And it was a lovely. Like I said, I loved it. I loved it. In fact, I also went on to make. I made a big book of ghost tabulous, like fabulous, but ghost tabulous, and it was a huge big book. This ink has got a very chemical smell. That's very strange. Winsor & Newton doesn't usually smell like this. Maybe I've put the wrong ink. And anyway, Ghost Tabulous was like a collection of all the books and the drawings with a few extras thrown in. And it was like a big, thick book that you could put all... I don't know. It was kind of like... shame. Nobody bought my book. But it's definitely a character that I will come back and do again. I mean, it's one of those characters that I really felt kind of some kind of closeness with. It's like this ink is really driving me a bit crazy because it's like. I feel like it's very dry. But he's my type of character. I loved Norman, and I loved the way his mind kind of would fill my mind. I would kind of be walking down the street, and I'd be kind of thinking about something, and I'd be thinking, oh, tonight what should I have for dinner? And I'm thinking, what would Norman have for dinner? And I'd start thinking about things, and I'd start going to all these little stories in my mind, and it's like, and it's like, I always have like a side bag with a little notebook, and I'm sitting there and walking through the streets writing all these notes down, and people are looking at me like, who's that crazy person over there? I'm writing all these. Norman would da 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 da. Norman is what. Norman should be what. It's fabulous, and I love the whole period of time. It's like. And it kind of went through this whole kind of stage where Norman and Worilips kind of took over my whole mind for a while. I would just constantly, I'd be sitting in the bath with my sketchbook and, Yeah, I quite often sit in the bath with a sketchbook. I know, I'm going a little bit crazy. I know. But, yeah, and I'd be sitting in there thinking about Norman, and in the story, Norman gets kind of tricked into buying this pet. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh, you need a pet." A little bit like what happened to me, but with everybody saying, "Ah, man, you need a dog." You need to get a dog. Well, they kind of said the same type of thing to Norman, except when he went into the pet shop, he kind of got tricked into buying this kind of Norwegian, whatever kind of animal, and it ends up to be an albino crocodile, and the crocodile lives with Norman in the house as well, and so me sitting in the bath would kind of be like, well, if Norman was in the bath, would the crocodile be in there as well? Would he? And that's kind of like how my whole kind of period of time in my life, and I wrote these stories, and in the stories, then I put all the stories at the side. One day I had this really clever idea. I thought, oh my god, wouldn't it be great if like the book wasn't like the story, but the book was my thoughts, my sketchbook, my notebook. Like, I keep writing all these thoughts about Norman doing this. Norman's going to be doing this. Norman's going to be doing that. What about if Norman was like that? And I thought, well, since Norman is kind of like talking through my head a lot, I kind of thought that I would do the book as his thoughts. like daily thoughts of Norman. And I think that's kind of where people kind of lost their maybe some people didn't kind of get what I was trying to do. My sister is always saying, "Oh, I don't think people got what you meant," and that's probably true. You know. Uh, well, sometimes you need people just to kind of tell you straight, like, man, that book didn't work. That nobody understands that book. You're going too crazy or something. You know what I mean? So this is Norman. This is Norman. Say hello, Norman. Hello. And that's his kind of green stripy his green stripy rugby shirt. Rugby shirt is what I was looking for. Now the drawing isn't finished because I want to kind of get a bit of an idea of where my kind of borders are, because I'm going to try and bring in some of the ghosts around him here. So stick with me. I'm going to be drawing a little bit more. See that the Winsor Newton ink is so thick it just sits there. I don't like it. I like the talon seems to spit more, you know. Well, on certain drawings, it's not like it's a direct kind of competition or something. It's like certain drawings use certain different inks, you know, and certain drawings, especially with like Norman, I like the ink to have this kind of dryness to it, this kind of yeah. That's quite beautiful, isn't it? There's something definitely. I think maybe this isn't Winsor Newton ink, because smelling it doesn't smell like Winsor Newton ink at all. Yeah, I'm kind of. You picked up on that, didn't you? I'm kind of sensitive with smells as well. I do kind of. I don't know. I don't know why, but I can kind of smell the differences with ink sometimes. You know, it's like, and that definitely isn't. See, even the way the drops fall, it's just like different. Oh, poor Norman looks so cute. I love him. I do. I think he's one of my favorite characters. I did 3 books of it. A Head Full of Bees was book number 1, and that was exactly how I felt at the time. My head was like full of bees. Norman kept talking to me, you know. And one of the things I felt when I had this old rugby jumper on was that the shirt was like that long, you know. I mean, there's no way I could make it any shorter. I mean, maybe I just got short arms or something. I'm not quite sure what that. But it would come to about there, and my fingers would just kind of dangle off the edge, and that's just kind of how I wanted him to be with this. You know, I wanted him to have that. This ink is a little bit too wet for some of the shading on it, but I'll try and. I'm going to try and. But go and have a look at the book if you're interested. Go and check out Norman. I think he's a lovable character. I definitely loved my time drawing Norman. And these are some of the ghosts in the back there. And it was nice because it was also a very different style for me, you know. It wasn't like a kid's book, and it wasn't some of the softer stuff that I'm kind of more known for. It was something very kind of, well, it was more shaded and more dark, I guess. Dark's probably the word I'm looking for, you know. And these are some of the kind of ghosts. I'm just trying to kind of give this feeling here of them all kind of surrounding him. See, the ink is not following me on this. But if you like odd books, and if you like different, and if you like books about mental thoughts and stuff like that, please go and check out Norman Worilips. The books are called Worilips. Give him a different face there. There's another little ghost peeking in through there. And I'm trying to give this feeling on the book cover of hopefully trying to give this kind of feeling of are these ghosts kind of his imagination or not? And that's what the reason for possibly redoing the book cover was, that maybe the book cover was kind of letting you guess too much. So I've been told. Yeah. And you can't be successful in every story that you do, but you know, at the same time, you've got to have your favorites. And Worilips was one of mine. It really was. I loved it. I loved the whole concept of it. I loved how unusual the book was. It was very special. So this is Norman here, being surrounded by all his imagination. By the ghosts in his memory. You see, because the book kind of was stemmed basically from when I was in hospital and when I came out of the hospital, I had a lot of I had a very bad experience in hospital anyway. I mean, you know, I was kind of in a kind of a state of confusion almost, because some of the drugs in the hospital really did not work very good on my mind, you know. Morphine was one of them. Morphine was a devastating drug that I was on at the time. When I had my liver transplant, which I'm sure some of you have heard all about. I had a liver transplant about 5 years ago. It wasn't from anything to do with drink or alcohol. It was basically to do with my autoimmune system, which is kind of falling apart and in a not a very healthy way, but a happy way, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. So the morphine kind of sent me off to a different planet. Really, it was a very, very, very strong drug. In my mind, up until that point, I hadn't even taken like paracetamol or something. If I got a headache, it was like, well, get used to it, mate. It'll go. Think about Wonder Woman for 10 minutes, and you'll probably forget you've got a headache. It's like that was my cure. You know, you know. Mind you, Wonder Woman is kind of like the cure for everything, really. The original Wonder Woman, not the new skinny one. I like the old one. 1984 or something, was she? Linda Carter, what a gorgeous woman. Still to this day, probably the most beautiful woman on the planet. Has there been a project that you've been working on? Has there been something that you've drawn in the past that you just absolutely love, but hasn't really been popular by anybody else? If there is, tell me all about it. Come on. I thought it was a great book. That's all that's important. It was a beautiful period in my life. I loved it. I loved everything about it. In fact, the original ending to my book, I told my friend that it was like there's like 4 books, and in the ending it's like blah 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 blah. I'm going to tell you what the ending is, but in the ending it's not very happy ending. And when I told my friend, he was like, "No, no, 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 you can't. Please, please don't do that ending." I was like, "Why?" "No, please, please, please don't do that ending." I was like, "Oh." So I never did book 4. And I quite often kind of think about, oh, should I go back and do book 4? Should I, And, but to this day I haven't. Mind you, it is probably not a very happy ending on book 4. So if I was to do it, then it might be like that kind of would change the whole feeling, I guess, about the whole book and the whole character. Maybe I'm not quite sure really. So up until this time, I haven't, but it's still there. I will do the full book. I will do the full written novel, as it were, at some point. Hopefully, at some point soon. But time is terrible these days. It's like I've been working on these kids' books, and it's like trying to do kids' books, and then trying to do a YouTube video, and trying to do the YouTube videos, and trying to do the kids' books, and whoa, man, life's a busy thing. But if you do like my videos, do tell me. And if you don't like my videos, write to me. Tell me, what is it you don't like about them? I've had so many different comments and so many different people saying different things. That's kind of like the beginning of it. This will be a partial coloured illustration. I'm not sure if if the ink will be dry enough. Quite possibly will be, since it seems to be very petrol-like, very strange. So this will be the new cover for the book. Got to try. I always kind of felt like I'm a little bit kind of sorry for poor old Norman in an odd way though, because he had this kind of like he has this crocodile called Mr. Lemons, and Mr. Lemons is a little bit like well, he's never quite sure. Is this like a big smile that he's got, or is this thing gonna eat me one day? So I loved that kind of unsure feeling that he had, you know. And I loved that kind of. He wasn't like a written in as a wordy character or anything. It was just like very much kind of visuals, and that was nice. In fact, Mr. Lemons at some point falls in love with a neighbourly crow, which again was kind of like gets to the point that although he's kind of like worried about this crow, he's kind of also a little bit afraid that the crow will take Mr. Lemons away from him. Will Mr. Lemons leave him? You know? And that kind of made a nice dimension to it, because it was kind of like there's characters in there that are like he doesn't really, you're kind of unsure about how does it like Mr. Lemons feel about this man that he's living with. Is there a happiness there? Is there some kind of, does he see him as food? I loved the whole kind of angle on that. It was just kind of kept it fresh for me, Let's just fill those last few spaces in. It's quite a busy picture, but you'll find that all the ghosts will kind of be very greyed out. They won't be such like in your face, hopefully. So what have you been drawing today? Hopefully you've been drawing something really cool. And you'll write and tell me all about it. Or you'll write and tell me, what do you think about my new book cover? Do you like my new book cover? Is it better than the old ones? Let me know. I'm very curious, Just to do kind of like a bit of a sleepy ghost there. I do love to get your comments. I do love hearing from you. Just even, don't be shy. I really do enjoy them. So, if you've got something you want to tell me all about, even if it's nothing to do with my drawing, you just want to say hi. Say hi. It's cool. I love it. And I love you all of you. You're just fabulous. And if you can see anything that you think will improve my videos and improve my, however you want to say, my visual part of my YouTube page, please let me know. That is today's drawing, and it does need to be painted up, so I'm just curious to see how my see, that's kind of dried up quite quickly. Very strange how quickly it's dried up, but so here we go. Let's try and do some. Let's put a nice little bit of colour onto Norman. I think that's going to be too dark, I think. But let's take a nice soft brush and let's start to get some yellow in there. Because he's kind of got this yellowy face. I kind of like that about. In fact, I might even put a drop of that ink, that colour into the, just to kind of lift it up a little bit. It's kind of can get a little bit kind of too dark in his face sometimes. Let's just check that out. Yeah, let's see, it's gone very. Yeah, it's gone too dark. I'm gonna have to leave that for painting for now. But today's drawing is Norman Worilips. So, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for just spending the time with me. It's lovely. I do enjoy it. And today's book cover, if I set everything up, I'll do a second part 2 and you can see the color version of it, okay? Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being there. You're wonderful. And I'll see you again soon, okay? Bye-bye.